Hey beautiful, have you considered subscribing to our channel? Help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers.
In the polished chambers of the Galactic Council, where species from 1,000 systems debated law, conquest, and survival, the name Earth came up once more, spoken in a tone that straddled mockery and mysticism. Warlord Jator of the Varnach. Dominion leaned forward on his obsidian talons, voice dripping contempt. This, Earth, he said, emphasizing the word as if it were a disease, sits unaligned, unprotected, and laughably backward. No planetary shields, no orbital defense rings, no interstellar alliances, yet it remains untouched. Murmurs rose around the chamber. Ambassadors shifted in their seats. The Varnach were known for their ruthless efficiency, and Jator was their most feared enforcer. Entire civilizations had vanished beneath his fleets. Sethril of the Zendari, a thin-boned species with translucent skin and a scholar's temperament, steepled his long fingers. Earth is not what it appears to be, Warlord. Our archives warn against approaching it. Jator snarled, baring serrated teeth. Old warnings. Superstition. They are patterns, Sethril replied, calm despite the tension. 4 separate reconnaissance missions disappeared in orbit. A 5th returned mad. The pilot's final log simply said, "They see us before we see them." Another voice chimed in, Ambassador Kor of the Dalari. "We've traced signals. Earth radiates data at alarming density, stories of violence, chaos, war. But all fictional, or perhaps predictive. It is difficult to determine what is real and what is performed. A culture obsessed with destruction," Jator waved a clawed hand, "or perhaps one too fractured to be a threat. They bathe in fantasy because reality offers them nothing." He stood, towering over the assembly. His voice echoed across the BS council floor, heavy with derision and certainty. "I will send a battalion, 1 ship, light armament, a test. If Earth falls, the Varnach claim it. If it doesn't," he shrugged, "then perhaps your ghosts are real." Sethril looked at him, a sliver of something almost like pity in his gaze. "Be careful, Jator. The last predator to stalk Earth did not even leave a skeleton behind." The chamber emptied slowly after the vote, unanimous, if reluctant. The council would not interfere. Far from the galactic corridors of power, under a quiet, cold sky on the northern edge of Washington state, Marcus Gray split wood with practiced swings. The old axe glinted in the pale morning sun. Behind him, the forest stretched in every direction, thick, silent, and knowing. His cabin stood a few meters away, smoke curling from the chimney, no signs of modern life, but for a short-wave antenna poking above the trees. He paused, felt it more than heard it, a vibration under his boots, brief and unnatural. He set the axe down, wiping sweat from his brow. Years in Black Ops had left him with a finely tuned sense for when something wasn't right. And this wasn't. Inside, he flicked on the radio. Static, switched bands, more static. Then a brief pulse, a sharp sequence of tones. He frowned. That wasn't military or commercial. That was alien. He didn't smile exactly, but a corner of his mouth twitched. He'd spent his last years in the service chasing whispers about something coming. "They'll get here eventually," his old commander used to say. "And when they do, Marcus, we won't have time to build anything new. We'll have to make do with what we already are." He opened a hidden panel under the floorboards. Inside, a reinforced weapons locker, a satellite uplink, and a black case labeled Echo 17. He opened it, revealing a rugged laptop. With a few keystrokes, he activated a dormant network, encrypted channels that hadn't seen traffic in over a decade. Within seconds, green lights began to blink. Across the country, in abandoned bunkers, desert compounds, and urban basements, men checked devices long thought dead. They had waited, trained in silence, laughed off as conspiracy theorists or hermits. But now the code was active. The quiet protocol had begun. Up in Earth's thermosphere, cloaked in reflective camouflage, the Varnach dropship Ravager 17 drifted into position. Inside, Commander Raal, second only to Jator in brutality, reviewed the mission parameters. 100 shock troopers equipped with phase weaponry and nanite suppression armor. Their objective: reconnaissance, sample collection, civilian capture. No large-scale engagement yet. They won't know we're there, Raal told his crew. You will be ghosts. He dropped into the atmosphere on a controlled trajectory, landing deep in the forests of North America under the cover of night. Scanners showed scattered rural settlements, nothing centralized, no resistance, no planetary sensors tracking them. Defenseless, he muttered, half in disbelief. The first abductions were easy. Isolated targets, no response from local authorities, a few barking dogs, silenced quickly. The humans were soft, confused, easily overwhelmed, until they weren't. Raal's squad moved to extract a third subject, a man alone in a hunting cabin. They breached with precision, a vaporized door, stun grenades, tactical formation, but inside was nothing. Then the floor collapsed. From beneath the cabin, a series of triggered charges erupted, engulfing the squad in flames. 2 troopers were instantly killed. Another staggered out, blind and burning. He was met by a human with a shotgun. Marcus fired twice, once to stop the thing from moving, once to make sure it never would again. His expression was unreadable, eyes focused and cold. He moved quickly, looting the alien tech, bagging what he could for later analysis. From the tree line, another man approached, taller, leaner, carrying a scoped rifle. He wore a camo jacket with old bloodstains and the faded patch of a forgotten Special Forces unit. "Lieutenant Holloway?" Marcus greeted. "Captain," Holloway nodded back. Picked up chatter. Static patterns match what? "We used to train for. Someone's watching from orbit." "I know," Marcus said. That was the point. By morning, word had spread through the underground net. The aliens had landed, and they were bleeding. Jator received the first report with an amused grunt. Primitive traps and gunpowder? So they cling to their relics, let them struggle. It will make their fall more entertaining. But the second report, transmitted through a barely alive scout before the signal cut out entirely, was less amusing. The trooper's voice was panicked, his breathing labored. "They see through our cloaks. They track sound, smell. They set fires just to funnel us. One of them spoke our language, fluently. They're not panicking. They're hunting us." The feed ended in static. Jator leaned back, expression unreadable. He wasn't worried yet, but the chill was there, like a predator catching the scent of something that might bite back. Back on Earth, Marcus and Holloway descended into a hidden bunker carved into the base of a mountain, a relic of a program. Defunded, buried, and officially erased. Inside, screens flickered to life. Communications bounced off old spy satellites. Blacklisted AI cores hummed back to sentience. A low hum filled the cavern as long dormant servers synchronized. "Think. They'll send more?" Holloway asked. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared at a screen showing an overhead image of the Varnach dropship. It pulsed faintly with shielding tech, far more advanced than anything Earth had. "Publicly. They think we're weak," Marcus finally said, "because they looked at our cities, our weapons, our broadcasts. They didn't look at our history," Holloway finished. "Didn't see what happens when someone backs us into a corner." Marcus turned to the main console. The quiet protocol had been Phase 1, alert the shadows. Now it was time for Phase 2. He keyed in a command. From the Arctic to the Australian outback, from Siberia to the sands of Nevada, old war bunkers lit up, systems activated, weapons brought online by men with names erased from every record. Not governments, not armies, just people who had seen what was coming and prepared. "Let's show them," Marcus said, voice low. "Why no one ever comes here twice." And far above, hidden behind cloaking arrays, another Varnach vessel watched Earth, silent, hesitant. Calculating, it did not move. It did not transmit. Because deep in its artificial brain, something ancient had flickered, A half-forgotten signal, a legend buried in the Varnach archives, a message from a scout, long gone. Earth is not prey. Earth is the trap. The dropship touched down without a sound. Its composite skin shimmered against the forested backdrop, dispersing light in patterns designed to fool organic eyes and primitive sensors. To the locals, it would appear as nothing more than a shimmer in the treetops or a ripple in the wind. Commander Real stood inside the open cargo bay, motionless, surveying the alien terrain before him. He gave a short, guttural command, and a squad of 6 Varnach shock troopers descended the ramp, weapons drawn, movement coordinated, methodical. Their armor adapted to the environment, shifting hues to match the undergrowth. The thick smell of pine and wet soil filled the air. They moved like machines through it, every step silent. Their first target was a farmhouse nestled near a river. Bend. It stood isolated. No nearby neighbors, no visible security, no recent transmissions. Inside, 2 humans slept. The scan confirmed vital signs. Adult male, older, adult female, mid-30s, warm blood, soft tissue, fragile. They entered through the rear wall, vaporizing a hole with a silent molecular cutter. Within 30 seconds, the occupants were restrained, sedated, and lifted into containment pods. Raal watched from his command screen with mild satisfaction. This was expected. Easy. The illusion of human civilization, loud, proud, and ultimately hollow. Within the hour, they'd secured 3 more homesteads. No resistance, no weapons discharged. But at the edge of the 4th extraction zone, something changed. The troopers moved into a clearing where a cabin stood empty, smoke still curling from the chimney. It was too quiet. No heat signatures, no signs of movement inside. The lead trooper signaled caution. The team split formation, 2 approaching from the front, 2 from the rear, 1 circling high with a sensor drone. Then the ground exploded. Not with the brute chaos of gunpowder or the searing pulse of lasers, but with the cold, deliberate violence of shaped charges. Tripwires laced with thermite erupted in sequence, engulfing 2 troopers instantly. The others, stunned, scrambled to respond, but the forest around them seemed to awaken. Shots rang out, loud, familiar to human ears, alien to the invaders. High-caliber slugs traveling faster than sound, shredded armor. 1 trooper dropped, twitching, chest cavity torn open. Another turned just in time to see a shadow rush from the tree line and bring an axe down into its throat. Marcus Gray moved through the smoke with a brutal efficiency born not of training but instinct. His hands knew every angle, every point of leverage. He didn't fight like a man defending home. He fought like something much older, something ancestral. He drove a second blow into the trooper's side and wrenched the weapon free, stepping back as the body collapsed. Across the clearing, Jake Holloway dropped into a crouch and fired twice. The rifle in his hands was old, bolt action, but every shot found flesh. He muttered a dry 2 down, then swept his scope toward the drone hovering above. A moment later, the signal cut off. A low-powered EMP grenade crackled in the air, and the drone spiraled down in silence. 1 trooper managed to retreat, leaking blue plasma from a severed appendage. It activated its emergency beacon as it stumbled through the brush, eyes wide with a new kind of terror. Behind it, no sound of pursuit, no triumphant cry, just stillness. The message sent back to the Varnach fleet was garbled, filled with static and fractured audio. The few words that came through made no sense to the command crew. Eyes in the trees, shadows with teeth. They laugh before they kill. Commander Real stared at the transmission, his 4 eyes narrowing. He dispatched a second squad immediately, more heavily armored, with aerial support. No more extraction. Now it was a sweep and burn mission. Back in the forest, Marcus and Holloway regrouped at the ridge. The fire from the ambush still smoldered behind them. Holloway knelt beside one of the fallen troopers, his fingers moving swiftly across the creature's armor plating, prying open a compartment. This tech's wired to self-destruct. "You've got maybe 10 seconds once it's triggered," he said. Marcus nodded. "Get what you can. We'll bag the rest for Ward's lab." "Think he's still got a lab?" Holloway asked, half smiling. "He never stopped building, just stopped asking permission." They moved quickly, coordinating with wordless gestures and tight comm bursts on the old encrypted net. The forest was no longer just terrain. It was a weapon they understood better than any enemy could. In a town 20 miles south, another man named Davis Reed was watching grainy surveillance footage on a jury-rigged projector in his garage. A dozen faces stared back at him. Off-the-book soldiers, militiamen, hunters, survivalists, each a node in a growing web. "They're hitting the outer perimeter," Davis said, his voice a rasp from too many years of smoke and bad liquor. "And they're not using recon drones anymore. They're sending things with teeth." The man across from him, tall, gaunt, eyes like broken glass, asked the only question that mattered. "Do we escalate?" Davis didn't answer. He turned to the wall and tapped a covered switch. A red light blinked. Somewhere underground, old generators hummed to life. When the second wave landed, they did so in formation. Drop pods descended in a staggered arc, fanning out across the valley. The sky shimmered briefly as orbital jammers activated, suppressing local broadcasts and GPS signals. But the humans didn't need satellites to navigate their own woods. The Varnach entered the valley expecting targets, visible, isolated, frightened. Instead, they found wire, traps, misdirection. They found fires burning in calculated circles to corral their advance. They found predators who set the rules of engagement. Within an hour, the valley became a kill zone. One unit reported an entire team ambushed in a barn, rigged with pressure triggers and collapsing support beams. Another tried to evacuate via a clearing, only to be met with shoulder-fired rockets. Homemade, ancient, devastating. Commander Ryle received each report in tightening intervals. His fleet's orbital scans could detect no centralized resistance, no unified command structure. Just small pockets of humans, disconnected, unpredictable, and absurdly effective. It made no sense. "Send in the Sentinels," Ryle finally ordered. From the belly of his ship, 3 biomechs descended, 7 meters tall, reinforced with adaptive shielding, built for crowd suppression on high-gravity worlds. They crashed into the Earth like meteorites, rising from craters with mechanical shrieks. Marcus watched them from a cliff, unmoving. Holloway, beside him, adjusted the scope of his anti-materiel rifle. "They're big," Holloway muttered. "Bigger things have fallen," Marcus replied. Below, a series of ground plates shifted, charges buried deep beneath the landing site. Activated, designed not to destroy but to pin, to disorient. As the mech stepped forward, they triggered magnetic snares. One froze mid-step, systems locking. Another swiveled toward the tree line, charging its plasma cannon. Then the cannon exploded in its socket. From beneath a fallen log, Davis Reed emerged with a shoulder-mounted launcher. Smoke curled from the tube. "Ugly sons of bitches," he muttered. Marcus gave the order. The attack came from all sides. Human figures darted from brush and ruin, striking with calculated fury. Some carried shotguns, others wielded fire axes, or even bows, crude by galactic standards, but wielded with ruthless precision. The last mech fell when Marcus climbed its back and detonated a pack of plastic explosives near its neural node. The blast sent him flying. He landed hard, rolled once, and rose with a wince. Blood streaked down his temple. He didn't care. Around him, smoke and silence. The valley was theirs again. On board the flagship, Jotter watched the casualty report grow into a catastrophe. Over 200 troops lost, 3 sentinels destroyed, no human civilian captures, minimal technological recovery, and worse, now the humans knew what their enemy looked like, fought like. There was no panic in the human response, no confusion, only speed, precision, rage. Jator leaned over the holographic table. The image of Earth rotated slowly before him. Its oceans gleamed under the blue light. To an outsider, it was peaceful, passive. He finally spoke, more to himself than the officers around him. They wanted us to come. In the darkness of the mountain facility, Marcus stood before a map lit by soft amber light. Dots blinked across the display, resistance cells, fallback zones, signal intercepts. Holloway approached, dragging a blood-stained tarp behind him. Inside were pieces of alien armor, a broken rifle, a crystalline sensor array. "You think they're done?" he asked. Marcus stared at the blinking lights. He knew better. "They haven't even started," he said quietly. "But neither have we." He reached for the command console. Time to wake the rest. Far beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility designed to survive nuclear extinction, the lights flickered on for the first time in 23 years. The corridor walls hummed with power, dust shook loose from ducts, and magnetic seals disengaged with slow, echoing groans. The door to Sublevel 9 slid open, revealing a single occupant, Elias Ward. Ward didn't look like much. Average height, silvering hair, hands calloused from a lifetime of work, but his eyes held a brilliance that was sharper than any weapon Earth had ever built. Once a lead researcher on the Joint Black Project's initiative, he'd vanished after the project was disbanded. Rumors claimed he was dead. Others whispered he'd gone rogue. Neither was true. When Marcus Gray's activation code came through, Ward had already been awake for hours. He'd seen the first atmospheric disturbances, tracked the Varnach insertion pattern, cross-referenced it with ancient predictions, both scientific and apocryphal. He was waiting. "Welcome back," Marcus said as he stepped into the control room. Holloway followed, dragging a crate of salvaged alien tech behind him. Ward barely looked up. "You're late," Ward replied, standing over a series of holographic screens. "They're already adapting. The latest units show improved atmospheric calibration, better visual filtering, reduced EM signatures. We have maybe 4 days before they breach our countermeasures." "We don't need 4 days," Marcus said. "We need 1, maybe 2. Ward finally turned to face him. "And what are you planning to do with them?" "Bait them," Holloway answered. "Make them come to us. All of them." Ward snorted. "That's not a strategy. That's suicide." "No," Marcus said. "It's a history. It's Normandy, Fallujah. We let them think they're winning, then show them what happens when you push Earth into a corner." He placed a palm-sized device on Ward's table. Alien in design, slick and black like obsidian. It pulsed faintly. One of their neural cores. Got it off a field commander. Ward's eyes widened. "How intact?" 80%. "Maybe. More." Ward snatched it up, already connecting it to his analysis grid. Lights surged across his interface. Data cascaded in long, alien strings. He muttered to himself, processing the implications as he scrolled through layers of encrypted code. Command algorithms, biofeedback loops, targeting heuristics. "Their war systems are partially sentient," he whispered. "But this isn't just tactical data. These are logs, personal logs." Marcus stepped closer. "What's it saying?" Ward frowned, translating in real time. "They're scared, not confused. Scared. They don't understand how we're resisting. Their initial scans suggested we had no central government, no defense network, no planetary warning systems. They weren't wrong," Holloway said with a dry grin. Ward nodded. "Exactly. They don't get it. They come from a culture where strength is measured in fleets and hierarchies. They can't comprehend a planet where everyone fights without being ordered to." Marcus said nothing for a moment. Then, "So we give them what they fear." Back aboard the Varnach flagship, the mood had shifted from arrogance to agitation. Jator paced his command deck like a beast circling a shrinking cage. Reports from the ground continued to deteriorate. Interference scrambled orbital telemetry. Their atmospheric drones were being intercepted before they reached target zones. He'd begun to see a pattern, not in the resistance itself, but in how it evolved. Every failed mission led to counterattacks more precise, more brutal. The humans weren't just reacting, they were learning. And worse, they were coordinating. "They are not unified," Commander Ryal insisted. "We found no global command, no military headquarters, no centralized authority." Jator slammed a clawed fist against the holotable, splintering its edge. "Then explain how their tactics evolve overnight, how different regions adapt. The same countermeasures, how they speak in different tongues, but fight as one." He turned to the science officer, a pale Varnach with twitching sensory crests. "Have you identified the source of the neural pulse we intercepted last cycle?" The officer hesitated. "Not a source, but a pattern. It repeats in harmonic frequencies, across multiple continents, always beneath radar thresholds, always bouncing through legacy satellites and decommissioned systems," Jator growled. "Like roots beneath the soil?" "Yes, my lord. And wherever it pulses, they mobilize." Jator stared at the projection of Earth, suddenly aware that the blue marble before him wasn't simply resisting, it was responding. Not as a collection of territories or tribes, but as a single organism, in Montana, beneath an abandoned mining facility repurposed into a staging ground. The trap was nearly set. Marcus stood beside a burned-out truck, watching a line of men pass crates of explosives and ammunition down into a ravine. Ward moved among the volunteers, checking transmitters, setting proximity mines, programming old combat drones to follow. "New commands." "You think this'll be enough?" Holloway asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "No," Marcus said flatly, "but it'll be loud enough to make them think it is." He tapped a device on his wrist, sending out a localized ping. Across the globe, other cells received the signal. Not a command, just an alert. It was time to act. In the ruins of Detroit, an ex-Marine detonated the foundation of an abandoned skyscraper, collapsing it onto a stealth lander. In Chile, a farmer fired a javelin missile hidden beneath a grain silo. In Ukraine, a network of partisans ambushed a supply team with improvised flamethrowers. It wasn't war in the way the Varnach understood it. There were no front lines, no flags, only resistance, and it was working. Jator's latest battalion was ambushed the moment it entered the Montana Valley. They were expecting human irregulars, scattered, ill-equipped, overwhelmed. What they encountered were calculated fields of fire, layered traps, kinetic projectiles masked by terrain. One unit made it 30 yards before being swallowed by a fuel-drenched trench set ablaze from 3 sides. Another activated a distress beacon, only to have it bounce back in a loop, a recording of a human child singing, distorted and slow. Jator watched the massacre unfold from orbit. He saw his warriors cut down not by superior weapons, but by superior understanding of the battlefield. Earth wasn't reacting. Earth was preparing. "We underestimated them," Raoul said softly. "Their weakness is deception. Their chaos is camouflage." "No," Jator whispered. "Their strength is memory." He began to issue retreat protocols, recalling the ground forces to high orbit. "We have to adapt, study them, build new models." "Should we signal reinforcements?" Jator looked again at the planet, at the clouds swirling over the continents, the endless forests, the dark seas. "No," he said, "not yet. This isn't conquest anymore. This is something else." Back in the mountain, the battle had ended. Smoke clung to the trees. Craters dotted the hills, but the defenders stood, bloodied, bruised, but standing. Ward limped up beside Marcus, holding a shattered piece of alien comms tech. "They're pulling back," he said. "Good," Marcus replied. "You think they'll give up?" Marcus shook his head. "They'll come back with something worse, bigger, smarter." Holloway joined them, kneeling beside a fallen Varnach trooper. He pulled off the helmet and frowned. "This one's different, smaller, younger, barely more than a recruit." "Why would they send in greenbloods?" Ward asked. Marcus exhaled. "They weren't attacking us this time. They were testing themselves." Ward looked up sharply. "You mean they're learning too?" A heavy silence followed. Then a new alert chimed across the board. not from Earth, from orbit. A transmission, unencrypted, open channel, no voice, just data. Ward pulled it up, parsing. The signal. As it decoded, a single message scrawled across the screen. We understand now. Earth is not weak. Earth is waiting. Marcus stared at the words. They weren't a warning. They were an acknowledgement, a step towards something neither side was. Ready to name, Holloway stood slowly. So what now? Marcus turned toward the uplink tower rising through the canopy. The stars above seemed closer now, as if leaning in to listen. Now, he said, we see who dares to step foot on a planet where every man is a weapon and every scar remembers why. The cold black of space loomed silent above Earth, but the quiet was deceptive. High above the blue and green world, the Varnach fleet reassembled like a predator, coiling before a final strike. Dozens of capital vessels formed a wall of iron, and hatred in low orbit, blotting out stars with their mass. At the center of the armada, the flagship Abyssal Scepter floated with grim purpose. Inside its command chamber, Jatter sat motionless on his obsidian throne, limbs tense, face carved, from fury and confusion. All around him his officers spoke in hushed tones, the usual crisp efficiency of their species eroded by dread. The humans had not only survived, they had forced a strategic withdrawal. The word had no place in Varnach vocabulary, and the shame of its necessity gnawed at their pride. Commander Ryal stepped forward, lowering his head. They are coordinating with no command structure. There is no leader, no council, just instinctive cohesion, an ecosystem of resistance. Jatter's jaw tightened. A hive with no queen. They've adapted to every assault, every new unit we field they dismantle in hours. We've tried force, terror, subversion. Nothing disrupts them. The fleet leader said nothing for a long moment. Then, with quiet finality, he spoke. Send the echo engine. The chamber fell still. Even Rael's breath caught in his throat. My lord, the echo engine is not a weapon. No, Jatter replied, it's a mirror, and if we cannot break their body, we must fracture their mind. Across the fleet, a single pod detached, sleek, spherical, forged from obsidian alloy, and etched with ancient Varnach runes, it drifted silently toward Earth. The echo engine did not explode or burn. It entered, slipped past radar, past satellites, past the grasp of Earth's most advanced defense nets. Its descent was not violent, but invasive, like a scalpel instead of a sword. In the forest outside what once was Denver, Marcus Gray felt it before he saw it, a pressure behind his eyes, like a headache blooming too fast. He staggered, grabbing the edge of a tree trunk, heart pounding. Around him others dropped to knees or slumped against walls. Holloway groaned, hand pressed to his temple. It's in our heads, he rasped. Ward, further down in the command bunker, was already scanning. Neural frequencies, his eyes widened. They're broadcasting emotional frequencies, fear, doubt, memory resonance. He turned to Marcus, face pale. They're trying to make us relive everything, every loss, every failure. Marcus closed his eyes, and suddenly he wasn't in the forest anymore. He was in Fallujah again. Heat, dust, the roar of gunfire, the scream of a brother in arms who didn't make it past the first corner. He felt the weight of that day, the hopelessness, the helplessness. It had never left him. And now it flooded back, magnified, replayed in merciless clarity. But as the memory sharpened, something broke through it. Laughter, not mocking, not cruel, just loud, brash, defiant. Holloway's voice from somewhere outside the illusion. You think this is the worst we've seen? He barked into the empty air. You think you can use our pain against us? You have no idea what that pain made us. The forest shimmered, the illusion cracking. Marcus gasped as he came back to the present, sweat streaming down his face. The others around him rose slowly, shaking off the mental invasion. Holloway stood in the clearing, shotgun over one shoulder, grinning like a madman. They think memories break us, he muttered, wiping his brow. Idiots, Ward's voice came over the comms. We traced the source signal. They landed a device northwest of here. Small, remote, high signal output. We can destroy it, but it's protected. Marcus looked to the hills. Then we tear the protection apart. Night fell like a curtain, and the assault began. The mountains howled as dozens of resistance fighters stormed the ridge. Makeshift armor, old NATO gear, steel forged in backwoods garages. It didn't matter. They fought with clarity, not chaos. Purpose, not desperation. Earth had no army left. So instead, it gave birth to 100 smaller wars, each burning with its own fire. The Varnach forces guarding the Echo engine were elite, clad in adaptive armor, trained in multi-environmental combat, and equipped with thought-linked battle networks. They expected insurgents. They got retribution. Marcus led the charge through a narrow canyon, flanked by Holloway and a kid named Spencer, a former engineer who had repurposed drones into kamikaze scouts. From above, homemade gliders released thermite canisters, raining fire on the enemy camp. From below, Ward activated an EMP pulse that shattered the Varnach formation's cohesion. They reached the engine. It stood like an altar in the center of a crater, humming with dark energy. Around it, a shield pulsed, a living membrane that burned. Skin if you got too close. Behind it, 5 Varnach guards waited with plasma scythes, eyes glowing with the engine's madness. Marcus stepped forward, lifting a modified railgun, its coils sizzling. He didn't speak, didn't posture. He just fired. The first guard exploded backwards, armor peeling like fruit skin. The others charged, but Holloway met one with a direct shotgun blast to the faceplate, then pivoted and drove a steel spike into another's side. Spencer, breathing hard, lobbed a drone overhead, then detonated it just as the last alien tried to leap. When the smoke cleared, only the engine remained. Ward joined them, limping. "I need time to disrupt the field." "You've got 2 minutes," Marcus said. The Varnach counterattack was already on its way. Above them, streaks of light announced drop pods descending fast. Too many. Too soon. Holloway raised his gun. "We can't hold this." Marcus didn't argue. He turned to Ward. "Set charges on the engine." Ward hesitated. "We won't get another sample like this." "We don't need to study it. We need to show them it failed." The old scientist nodded grimly and got to work. The first wave hit hard, 12 Varnach soldiers in tight formation. But they didn't expect the terrain to shift under them. Marcus had mined the canyon wall earlier, anticipating this. With a single click, half the ridge collapsed, crushing 6 instantly and pinning the others. By the time Ward yelled, "Done!" the charges were live. Marcus pulled everyone back, dragging Spencer, who'd taken a glancing hit to the leg. The Varnach swarmed the crater just as the engine reached overload. It didn't explode. It screamed. A pulse of inverted frequency ripped through the air, silencing every sound for 10 full seconds. Then the sphere folded in on itself, collapsing like a dying star, before vanishing with a flicker of violet light. The illusions ceased. The fear evaporated. Above Earth, aboard the abyssal scepter, Jator felt the psychic backlash ripple through his command deck. Officers collapsed, screens shattered, feedback flooded the system. The Echo engine was gone, and with it, their last advantage. Jator stared at Earth one final time. He had not underestimated their weapons or their strategy. He had underestimated their will. A single voice came over the fleet's long-range channel. It was Marcus Gray. He stood beneath a stormy sky, wind tearing at his coat, face bloodied and proud. "You came to conquer a planet, but Earth is not a planet, it's a crucible. You didn't find victims here, you found survivors. And the worst part?" He leaned closer to the transmitter. "You haven't even met the angry ones yet." He ended the call. Jator gave no order to return fire. He simply turned silently and left the bridge. The fleet broke orbit within the hour, limping away into the void. They would return home and speak of the world that could not be taken. The world that fought without unity, yet won through it. the world of fire and memory, and Earth would sleep again, not in peace, but in vigilance.